Iran strikes targets in Iraq and Syria. A U.S. commercial vessel was attacked by the Houthis in the Red Sea, and some insights from an Israeli soldier about what the fighting is like inside of Gaza. What's going on, everyone? Let's take a look at some updates as it relates to the ongoing war in the Middle East, which is now a regional war and is so frustrating because on October 8th, the day after the Hamas massacre into Israeli territory, so many people were talking about we have to be careful or this thing could escalate into a broader regional war. And here we are, 3 months later, it happened. So I don't even, we knew it was coming and we still got there, which is great. So I'm recording this at 9 a.m. Central on Tuesday, January 16th, 2024. Overnight, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps claimed responsibility for launching ballistic missiles in what it claims were Israeli spy headquarters in Iraq's Kurdistan region. They also say they hit targets that were allegedly linked to Islamic State in northern Syria, saying that they were defending their security and countering terrorism. Iraqi officials say that 4 civilians were killed and 6 wounded in these Iranian attacks. Iranian state media said that 11 ballistic missiles were used to destroy espionage centers and gatherings of anti-Iranian terrorist groups in the region. The IRGC, Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, who claimed responsibility for this attack, put out a statement saying, quote, in response to the recent atrocities of the Zionist regime causing the killing of commanders of the guards and the axis of resistance, one of the main Mossad espionage headquarters in Iraq's Kurdistan region was destroyed with ballistic missiles, end quote. The axis of resistance piece, I had somebody ask why I was calling it that the other day. Like I was trying to, use some old World War II style propaganda. That's the term that the Iranians have come up with. The Iranians, the Houthis, Hezbollah, and Hamas, they are calling themselves the axis of resistance. This is not some U.S. or Israeli term used to describe those groups. Now, U.S. officials said that American bases and forces in the region do not appear to have been targeted, and in turn, there were no U.S. casualties as a result of this strike. And then a spokesperson for the U.S. National Security Council said, quote, the United States supports the sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity of Iraq, which is a little tone deaf, to be honest. I mean, it was just a week ago, the United States carried out a targeted strike that killed an Iraqi citizen, albeit a key leader in an Iranian-backed militia that was attacking U.S. forces. Pretty sure that went off without approval or consent of the Iraqi government. Maybe it did. But either way, U.S. strikes killing Iraqi citizens, and then a week later we're talking about how, hey, we're here to support the sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity of Iraq. It's just, we can still think what Iran did was bad or not like it. It's just, we're in a lot of ways doing very similar things in that airspace. Then shifting out to the Red Sea, Houthi militants fired an anti-ship ballistic missile and struck the MV Gibraltar Eagle, a Marshall Islands-flagged U.S.-owned and operated container ship. So they hit it. In so many of these cases, the missiles are intercepted, the drones are intercepted, or they fail to reach their target. In this case, the Houthis launched a missile, and it hit a U.S.-owned ship and detonated. According to U.S. Central Command, the ship had reported no injuries or significant damage and is continuing its journey, which is positive. Earlier in the day, the United States detected an anti-ship ballistic missile fired towards the southern Red Sea commercial shipping lanes. The missile failed in flight and impacted on land somewhere in Yemen, and no injuries or damage reported. The Houthis claimed responsibility for this, as has been the case traditionally. The only time I haven't seen them claim responsibility for an attack was like 3 days ago when the ship carrying Russian oil was attacked, and people said this might have been a mistake. I think it was because the Houthis still haven't said anything about that. It's like it didn't happen at all. In this case, they put out a statement saying the naval forces of the Yemeni armed forces, it's the Houthis, it's not the Yemeni government. Again, need to make that clarification. It's just how they refer to themselves. With the help of God Almighty, carried out a military operation targeting an American ship in the Gulf of Aden with a number of appropriate naval missiles, and the hit was accurate and direct. They say the Yemeni armed forces confirm that a response to the American and British attacks is inevitably coming, and that any new attack will not remain without response and punishment. So again, we've talked about this repeatedly in the last few days. The U.S. and British, and I should say allied response, there were a lot of other nations involved with the targeting, with the intelligence, with the planning of that operation to strike Houthi targets. That did not stop the Houthis at all. The same pace is kind of occurring. Since those major U.S. And U.K. attacks on Houthi targets, they have since targeted U.S. military vessels and now 2, maybe 3 commercial vessels in the Red Sea. So I would expect that we're probably going to see another U.S. and coalition strike against Houthi targets any day now. So in what could be the first American casualties in this newest iteration of a war in the Middle East, there's 2 Navy SEALs missing at sea, and the search is ongoing as we speak. Now, these 2 SEALs, along with their teammates, were operating from the USS Lewis B. Puller, supported by helicopters and drones overhead. They executed a complex boarding of a ship near the coast of Somalia in international waters of the Arabian Sea. They did that to seize Iranian-made ballistic missile and cruise missile components. During the course of the search of that ship, they uncovered propulsion devices, guidance systems, and warheads for Houthi medium-range ballistic missiles and anti-ship cruise missiles, as well as air defense-associated components. An analysis conducted by U.S. Central Command says that these same weapons match those that have been used to attack commercial and military vessels in the Red Sea in recent months. Now, the 2 Navy SEALs that have been reported missing at sea were trying to board this ship in rough waters. It was around 8 p.m. local time. One of the SEALs got knocked off. The other jumped in to try to rescue him. And again, as of now, both are still missing. Now, the SEAL team that boarded that ship faced a crew of around a dozen. They had no paperwork. They were all taken into custody. The vessel was searched. Weapons and weapon components were confiscated, and that boat was subsequently sunk. Then turning to operations on the ground, Israel says that they continue to uncover rocket launch locations and rockets aimed at Israeli territory, and they released a video yesterday showing some of these being discovered and dismantled. Now, I've talked about these before, where it's sort of like a modified launch system where the rockets are underground and pretty easily hidden. Then the cover comes off, the rockets are fired, and those covers can come back on to where if Israel is using radar to figure out where these rockets are coming from, they send an asset overhead and they look at where, the point of origin is supposed to be, and it looks just like an empty patch of dirt. So it's possible Israel could look at this and say, maybe the launcher has already moved, and we're not going to waste a bomb or a missile on striking that empty patch of ground. Or if they of course know about these underground rocket launch systems, maybe they do strike it, but given how it's kind of built into this tunnel network, maybe it causes damage, maybe it doesn't. But either way, it's it's an interesting insight into how Hamas has and continues to fire rockets into Israeli territory, including from some of these areas in the northern portion of the Gaza Strip where the IDF has already moved through. Then there were some interesting comments yesterday put out on social media by an Israeli reservist coming out of Gaza for the first time since he was mobilized around 100 days ago. And there's a part here that I thought was worth mentioning, just to kind of give an idea as to how difficult this type of urban fighting actually is. He said, quote, "Hamas members rarely go around armed. They are neither stupid nor suckers. They know they won't be shot if they go in civilian clothes. They prepare the IDF ahead of time at the entrances to the building and arm themselves just a moment before the attack. That is why the fighting is much more complex than any other area, and anyone who tries to judge from the outside why soldiers shot X or didn't shoot Y should go into Gaza for a week or two and come back with insights," end quote. So what he's getting at there is Hamas is setting up ambushes, setting up firing points to where they're able to move from one location to another in civilian attire. And then when they get there, there is a machine gun or an RPG or grenades staged ready for them to attack Israeli forces. They conduct that attack and they move out in a different direction, maybe even leaving those weapons behind. So when they exit and they return back to the streets, if they're seen by Israeli soldiers, maybe they're captured, maybe they're let go because they look like civilians fleeing south. Just adds to the complexity of urban warfare baseline, even harder when you're fighting an insurgency-style enemy like the IDF is here. Then Hamas claimed responsibility for 11 attacks against Israeli forces yesterday and said that 3 Israelis that were being held as hostages in Gaza were killed in recent Israeli airstrikes. To the north, Hezbollah claimed responsibility for 8 attacks into Israeli territory, and Israel responded with pretty significant artillery and aerial bombardment of Hezbollah targets in southern Lebanon. Now, yesterday I mentioned that the northern front was stable between the IDF and Hezbollah, and some folks very correctly jumped on me there saying that Israeli civilians have recently been killed in the north and that there's a continuation of attacks all across the border area, which is completely accurate. The northern front is far from secure and very much kinetic. There's fighting happening there every day, but considering the significant Israeli attacks, or alleged in some cases, I guess, Israeli attacks against Hamas and Hezbollah leaders in Lebanon just a couple weeks ago, we're really not seeing any sort of significant escalation in that area right now. So the intensity and frequency of these Hezbollah attacks is pretty much in line with what they've been doing for a few months now. That, again, far from safe, far from secure, but it hasn't been kind of the ramp up and escalation that a lot of folks were keeping an eye out for after those most recent Israeli strikes into Lebanese territory. But that's all I got for now. Of course, if interested in national security subjects, be sure to check out the sit reps I put out on Substack. Link is in the description below. Substack now also has ad-free, sponsor-free videos that go live about 1 hour before they're up on YouTube. But thanks for watching. I'll see y'all next time.